Hello, everyone. Do you see that title? It says Our Mixed Media Moods. And this is our mood board. Have you missed us? Because Jen and I have missed you, and we are super stoked to be back. Here's the project that I'll be working on with you today. It's called A Long Sighing Breath, and it's a mixed media collage. I'm not gonna lie, I'm finding my way. I'm loving everything that I've been doing, all the work, styles and interpretations, and then just making stuff my own, all the different things that I've been picking up from other artists. I will say that, and I've always said that, a lot of my style is influenced by other mixed media artists and artwork that I enjoy seeing. So it's really exciting to me that it's sort of like all honing in together and making it my own. So here's a project that we're working on. Believe it or not, this is my second attempt at this project. I did one before and it was complete trash and I totally threw it away. But I had this really cool underpaper to work with that had the same colors and tones as the mood board because that was the project I had done originally. So I have this piece of cardboard and it's kind of hanging out around my desk, and I decided that I would use this as my substrate for my project today. And it's kind of worn and torn and really kind of scraggly already. So I decided that I would pull back a little bit of the top layer and reveal the corrugation that is between the layers that makes cardboard so strong. And then I got out some golden high flow in carbon black, and I'm now muddying up and distressing this cardboard even more. And it's really important that I say to you and that you keep in mind, I have not pre-treated this cardboard at all. There's no gesso on it, nothing. So wherever I put ink, as soon as, or paint or whatever, any colorant, as soon as it starts to soak into that porous surface of the cardboard, it's going to stay there. And that also provides for some really unique techniques, textures, and outcomes, things that I maybe even necessarily wasn't aiming for, but it turns out really cool and really fun. So you can see there where it's sort of stained in some areas, and I decided that I wanted more. I really enjoyed where this style was going, the grunginess, the layers. And the only way to get layers is to do layers, is to make layers. So I dried the first layer, and now I've come back for the second one, and I'm adding another layer, but much more washed out this time, of that same high flow golden in carbon black. And so it's acrylic based paint. It's acrylic paint that's water based, but it's very, very, very fluid, almost like an ink. And that was my third layer of watered down, sort of splattered around. And then I'm going to heat that dry, and there's three layers of grunginess that are sort of all building on top of each other, and it's really nice. I'm really, really enjoying it. Then I got out some masking tape. I was inspired by the top left image in our mood board that has all of the sort of hanging tiles that have words on them, and I don't exactly know what they are. I kind of like to think that they're well wishes or prayers of some sort for the future and for good tidings in general. But I loved all the different sort of tans that were happening. Like, not all the tiles are the same color. So I got out my masking tape because it's sort of in this tan tone, but they're different tones and they're different widths, which I thought also lent themselves to that sort of same idea. And I started collaging in the background and laying them down. And then I went over to my sewing machine and I did some really, really fun stitching. So I stitched around some of the edges, I stitched through some of the tape, I put some big zigzags, and I really had a lot of fun with that, just adding in different marks with my stitching, because I'm doing just straight stitching and the zigzags and the different sort of handmade zigzags, and it all worked really well. And you know, we all know I love stitching, and I really love that hanging thread, the texture difference that it adds to the whole project, and it sort of gives my pieces almost a look of sort of like not trashy, that's the wrong word, but when I think of it, I'll tell you, okay? If you know the word I'm thinking of, sort of, it's something, something. There's a word there that I'm trying to grasp. But anyways, so, sorry. back to the task at hand. This is that underpaper that I was talking about. I had done one project already and I hated it, so I threw it out, but I had this gorgeous underpaper left. And so I decided to tear some pieces of the underpaper and glue those right onto my collage. And I'm using a golden gel medium, heavy gel medium in matte. I always buy matte. It's not that I don't like glossy things, but they don't lend themselves well to my style of art. I can officially say that. I like matte things, unless it's like glitter or gold foil, then I really like something nice and shiny. But so I've glued down 2 pieces, and I love it. I love that stark whiteness that comes from the gesso on top of the gray underpaper, plus that pop of color. It's almost like you got smacked in the mouth. Like, I love it so much. Then I have some resin paper left over from the last piece that I did. If you didn't see that video, please go ahead and watch that. I show you how to make resin paper very quickly. And when you make resin paper, you have a lot. So you should make a lot because you're already playing with resin, and it's takes so much work to work with it. So when you have it out, do a few things, and I have some resin paper to use. So I went with this saying. It says a long sighing breath, and I felt like that I've been very busy getting things behind the scenes in order and working on those. I'm taking a trip to Australia in November to do some teaching, and so I've been working a lot on that, and I really needed to get into my art space. And when Jen and I talked about continuing our mixed media moods and really sort of getting our stuff in gear for that, it really was like a big long breath, just like so relaxed that I'm back into our mixed media moods, because I really needed to be back in my art space, and I'm super glad to be back with you. I did gel medium down that piece, and I did it on top of a piece of white, that same white from the underpaper, so that it had a little starkness behind it. I'm doing a little mark making with my white Sharpie pen. This is a water-based paint pen. There are other comparable things. I know a lot of people like the Posca paint pens. You can use those. And really just like even gesso, you can go straight in and mark make with gesso, and to make nice little dots, you could use the end of a paintbrush. You have options. We all have options for sure. And same here, just using a graphite pencil, no specific hardness, to do some doodling and some sketching on my piece. Just kind of back and forth there, and just adding a little bit of dimension. Okay, so this is I used to do this a lot when I did tags and paper crafts, but I really wanted to add in some holes, some just straight through holes into my cardboard piece. So I got out my giant crocodile and the big bite, the one that reaches 6 inches, and I started punching some different size holes. And then I got this idea, what about at the end if there was like a big punch? So then I grabbed my circle punch, instead of just a hole punch. It's like an actual paper punch. I grabbed that, and I couldn't get it around the cardboard. So instead I punched a piece of cardstock, and then I traced it onto the cardboard, and then I cut that out by hand with a pair of scissors. I really love how distressed the cardboard has become from tearing and wetting and inking and gluing everything on, and it's sort of become just like totally sketchy around the edges. It's really cool. And this, I'm pulling back out some resin papers here, and I decided, what if I could see something through some of these holes? And then this piece of resin paper is just so perfectly shaped. If I position it at the top right hand corner, it's going to come down on that side and sort of mimic the larger side of the cardboard that's on the left hand side, and it just made my heart beat so quick. It was so stinking cool. So I stitched that into place, and the great thing about stitching, especially when you're working on collage type stuff like this, is that then it becomes very permanent. So if you have any like concerns about gel medium and things like that, especially with resin, stitching it on is a surefire way to make sure it's going to stay there. Okay, so I edited out a little bit of video there where I was doing some hand stitching on this piece of muslin, because in the end I didn't like it, and so I didn't end up using it. but I liked where it was going. I liked the idea of this piece of muslin folded over and tucked in there as like a new texture, and it's just pretty. And so then I did it again, stitched up recut my muslin, and I end up stitching it with the machine down the sides. So then it also lends itself well to the whole piece. It's very cohesive. It has a tiny bit of stitching on it, just like everything else, just like the tape, like the cardboard, like the resin paper, and it's really, really awesome. And it's not hard to do at all. Kind of going back and forth before I stitch and just trying to make sure I have exactly what I want. Also, when I pull my project off of the page, out of view, what I'm doing is I'm holding my project up so I can see it from face to face, like up away from me, instead of always looking down at my desk, because things look different. So I like to get a full overall view of how things are coming together. Then I'm just securing that in between the cardboard and the resin paper with some gel medium. And I have this little tag, and I decided that I wanted to do some mark making on the tag itself. It's a really stark white tag, and I'm just using a paintbrush. I'm marking. And I'm loving how it's looking, and it looks really nice. And it looked a little bit uniform there for a minute, but just by moving my marks off the edge of the tag so that it looks like it's a continuous pattern, which it is, that's the idea. That really helps. That you guys would not believe. I mean, look, you can see the difference between having marks that go off the edge and not having marks. Before the marks go off the edge, it looks a little bit uniform. That's all I'm saying. And I'd used ink. This was not golden, it was Daler Rowney Artist Acrylic ink to make those marks. And then I decided to cut the tag hole off, and I am gluing it in with some gel medium because things become really nice and permanent with gel medium. And then I'm just loving at this point sort of layering things and tucking them in and making them all work together. And so these tags, they're from IKEA. I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, they were really popular, and I'm not sure that IKEA makes them anymore. I do know that sometimes they have really cool stuff in their stationery area. So if you see it, you should pick it up because I do believe it's seasonal. And I have these left over, and they're just really gorgeous, and they're really bright, like stark white with this really nice black imagery on them. And so I decided that I wanted just the tag hole to show. And I tucked it in behind. And look at how cool that is. And it also sort of shows when you make resin paper, you know, the resin soaks in. And so then you see the ink on both sides, and it's like a really big pop right there. And it's very cool. And that's my finished piece. So thanks so much for joining us today. This is my project, but Jen also has her beautiful project. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's so gorgeous. It has trees on it. Hint, hint, trees. So pop on over and check that out. There's a link, excuse me, there's a link below. You can get to Jen's, or if you click the video on the left here, you can go straight to Jen's. All right, subscribe. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be back doing videos. I keep saying that. Sometimes I go on a video making binge and then I take a few weeks off, but I promise if you stick around, I always have good videos. And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you have any below, I will answer them. Thanks so much for being here. See you next time.